All right. Welcome, everybody.
Hello. You mean we lost all my good stuff?
I just lost that one piece in the very beginning. Okay. For anyone joining onto my recording now, you didn't miss anything. I promise. We can recap if you need us to. I'm Marcy, owner of Professional Notary Services, founder of NYNA. I'm super excited. This is our monthly roundtable that we do. If you've been here before, you know it's super informal. If you haven't, you're about to find that out. I have my good friend, Amy Seitz, over here from Cyberize, that she so graciously agreed to pop in and chat with us today. And you're going to hear from me why in a few minutes. I, again, want to reiterate, this is super informal. There's no PowerPoint, none of that kind of thing. We really just want to have a sort of roundtable conversation about some things I've been seeing on social media, some things that I think need to be addressed a little bit in the world of Ron. And then I know you guys probably have questions and scenarios too. So we're going to make this a completely open sort of thing. I'm going to ask just a couple of easy, super rules. Just be respectful of everybody. Not everyone is at the same level that you are in your remote online notary loan signing sphere, right? So we want to be cordial and respectful for everybody who jumps on. If you have something that you want to say, just raise your hand. Certainly you can talk and I'll unmute yourself, but just so that we don't run over each other, that'll be super helpful. And then we'll go about an hour or so. This is getting recorded, so if you could pop out or you need coming back and forth, we'll go ahead and post it for you. But thank you all for coming. So Arnold, I know you had a question. I'm also going to ask, when you ask your question, can you tell us what state that you're in so that we can make sure that we're answering the question to the best of our ability according to your state laws and not some random thing that we think you might be from.
Okay, certainly. I am in Florida.
Welcome.
I got my commission in August of 2022. And within a month, I also had my NSA and my Florida RON. So now it's just a matter of finding clients. That's all.
That's all.
My question for Amy is this. The two things that concern me about using both Notarize and Blue Notary those are the two that I've seen that offer you clients based on whatever your membership level is with them. Okay. The problem is you can't get it. And the
can't get them fast enough, right?
Can't get them fast enough. And I wonder if that's due to a technical issue. It's funny because I asked Notarize about this and they told me that the servers that broadcast those things are based in Boston. And I'm down here near Tampa Bay. And although I know internet communications are supposed to be reasonably instantaneous, I don't know that they can be that instantaneous. I think there's hops to go through and things like that. And by the time I even see the broadcast opportunity and can respond to it within milliseconds, it's already gone.
And I honestly, it's one of those things where if you send a bulk email we're just going to refer back to email. Okay. Even if I send an email out to 300 people at once, some people are going to get it faster than others. It's right. Just you're from the IT world. We learned that before we got in here. I'm from the IT world. Instantaneous is not instantaneous on any level. In addition to that, I don't know what this is, but someone has been going around and doing some kind of a clicking app.
Oh, the Click It app. Yeah, that they're doing that on Notarize. Yeah.
Yeah, to claim those. Now,
what's the Click It app? Oh, I gotta jump in a minute.
No worries. So what it does is they load up this PC and they just constantly have this app running to click in the spot to claim the jobs.
It simulates a click on your website. So in other words, when it broadcasts and it just click, click, click immediately. Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems
they have said unfair. That if they catch anybody doing that, they'll remove them from the platform, but it's kind of hard to catch them.
Yeah. How do you prove that? I think what would increase your odds is obviously getting the higher end computer. I'm sure you probably already have one, but the higher megahertz, the quicker to respond.
I just
maybe a
actually built,
gaming
I
computer.
actually built 2 new Ubuntu machines with Core i9. So, and so I'm running Ubuntu 22.04. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that will definitely help increase your odds. Honestly though, I think there's just too many people and not enough work. So you can't spread it around.
Yeah, I kind of figured that myself as well.
And then they've got rankings, so depending upon your level, you're only going to see certain levels of work. So you probably are brand new. So you're in the general notary work pool.
That's correct.
Which is where everyone falls into at first. So you can't elevate up until you get stuff under your belt, and then you can't get stuff under your belt until you can claim it, and you can't claim it because there's too many of you. So
catch 22,
yeah.
Anyway.
So and unfortunately, I our platform also will send work out. Like I sent 3 closings out to notaries today. I had one out of Florida do one out of Virginia, and I got one doing one in Montana right now for me. So it isn't that we don't provide work. I tell people, I don't want you counting on my work. My work should be your date night money. This is, extra. We're going to do something and splurge. But I don't think anyone should count on a platform for your work. And here's why. So for a while, I did a little short thing like an Uber and Lyft to fill in some time when I was working my 9 to 5. And at any point, they could turn you off.
That's right.
And what are you going to do if they turn you off? How are you going to live if your paycheck is shut off tomorrow because your entire client base was provided by that platform?
By the way, I did Postmates myself, but
yeah, DoorDash, Postmates, and that's why we sign up for multiples, right? I didn't just do Uber, I did Lyft too, because if one turned me off, I could go to the other, right?
Right.
DoorDash, Postmates, Uber Eats, that's the same kind of gig mentality. It's great to have multiple options, and I applaud you for going in and getting those in those areas. But keep in mind, you really need to get your own clients because you're going to get a better return on your investment and a longer term return on your investment.
Well, in essence, I'm officially retired, so I'm drawing Social Security, but this is my additional income.
And you can get like $13,000 or something like that, right?
Oh, this year I am under the retirement age, so my income for additional income is restricted. This year it's $20,000. Next year is the year I'll reach full retirement age, and so it is therefore $50,000 that calendar year, and after that it's unlimited.
Awesome. Well, the trick to this is having a good tax preparer so that you can mark off those expenses.
I do H&R Block on the web, so
perfect. But yeah, that would be my advice.
Amy, you make a good point, and so I always try to remember this. Ron really is BYOB, right? Bring your own business. I mean, I know we hear about the platforms who give, and everyone's always looking for that work, but really to be sustainable over time, you should be building and bringing your own business to those platforms. Am I incorrect in saying that?
No, you're 100% correct.
Just out of curiosity, how many of you use Google Business?
I have a Google profile. When I first started out, that's not where I got my Ron leads though, if that's what you're asking.
The reason I say that is because I want to do it, but I have I'd say a complication in that I can't use my street address for anything involving Google Business because my homeowners association won't allow it. And so I have to use I have like an alternative, like posted box type address, but Google Business won't accept that, so I'm sort of like stuck.
So you can actually publish and hide your address. Okay. So they'll mail you the card, but they won't put your address on your profile. Okay. You can say hide it.
Okay, I'll have to look into that. I think I'm going to get one of those fixers, that help you establish the thing. sort of thing, like one of those fixer account persons that does that?
Well, if you're looking for somebody, I recommend Jim Allen.
Jim Allen, thank you.
He's out of Idaho.
Okay, could you put in chat, please?
Yeah, actually, he's called the Marketing Notary, and he holds Google Business classes, and they're pretty reasonable. He works with Bill Soroka, if you're familiar with him.
I am, because he's on my Facebook page that I see. So
okay, so I just put Jim's website in the chat.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, I'll shut up now. I talk too much. So
that's fine. We'll do a big circle and come right back to you. So before we go to the next person, I want to address this white elephant. I feel like is the big one. I hear it all the time from notaries and people. I can notarize anything for you, for anyone, anywhere in the world at any time.
False.
How do we feel about that statement? Right, there are parameters, right? Like there are state laws, there are, this is not one of those things where it is the wild, wild west of notarization, correct? Am I right in saying that?
You're right on it, nail on the head. So the first issue is obviously state law. Like here in Ohio, I cannot do an online deposition. I have to do a deposition in person, and a deposition is just swearing someone in for court testimony. It's pretty simple. But now on the flip side, in Pennsylvania, they can do it and they don't have to go through any ID verification of the person at all. They can literally jump on Zoom like we did here today. And that's in their law. They don't even need a platform. So all the court reporters in Pennsylvania have it made, right? But then you go and look at Montana, and Montana, they can do it, but they got to go through verification. They got to go through the platform to do it. So every state law is different on different notarial acts. In addition to that, we look at Louisiana. Louisiana are special. They can't do, if I said, Marcy, I want to give you my car because I'm giving it to you and I got to notarize that document online. Louisiana notaries can't notarize it because it's a gift, and they can't notarize a gift online. It has to be in person. And there's a few other laws too, but they get a little complex, and I'm not going to get into that. But that's the first level of what can I not do. The next is, what does the receiving agency want? So today I had to give up a closing to a Texas notary. The client could get KBA, the client could get the ID credentialed. It met all of my Ohio laws, but underwriting said, I'm not taking it unless it's with a Texas notary. So the receiving agency has to allow for a cross-jurisdictional notary to do it. And the reason that comes into play is because if that's ever challenged in court, the Texas law would also have to incorporate some Ohio law because the notary was in Ohio. So this way, keeping it in the state, they lower their risk of it being overturned if someone ever stops paying on the mortgage or someone ever contests that transaction. So we've got to keep that in mind as well.
So it's not just the electronic documents that they're not accepting, it's the fact that it was two states handling it.
Exactly. Then we got to look at the location of the signer. So if all of the signers are in the United States and the document meets those first two conditions, we can notarize it online. Anyone, anywhere, right? Anywhere in the continental United States or outer territories. So if they're in Guam or Puerto Rico, we're good to go, okay? But as soon as our client is overseas, we have a whole nother dilemma. So I got an email today from a client. He and his brother in Canada. They need to sign a transfer of lien document. And he had used me for multiple closings for his properties in Florida. So he reached out to me to see if I could do it for him because going to a Canadian notary is expensive and time consuming. So I replied back to him and I said, I have two questions. Are you and your brother both physically in Canada? And will the document be used in the United States? Because in order to notarize a document online with an international signer, either the document was created in the United States, so it could be a diploma or a birth certificate. It could be anything. And keep in mind, even if the signer is a US citizen who's on foreign soil, they still have to meet these criteria. So it has to be created in the USA, or it has to be filed in the USA. So they could have had it created in Spain, but they're going to file it in the United States. All right. Or it deals with real estate or a court matter in the United States. I had a client. She was in India, and we were doing a document, and it was giving something to her brother in Texas. I was allowed to do that. It's going to Texas, right? So she's like, this is so awesome. I'm going to call you every time I need something, right? 2 weeks goes by. She calls me again. This time she's got a document. It was created in India, and it was for property in India. Do you think I could do it?
Would it involve like apostilling or something, or?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope, because it had nothing to do with the USA. I could not do it. I had to turn her away. And an apostille is a document that deals with something or someone in the US that's going to be used in another country. So it still has to do something with the US if you're going to apostille a document.
Mm-hmm.
So there are limits. We are not all powerful. We are more than the traditional notary, in my opinion, but we still all have a roof. We all still have a stopping point. And that's where having that network of Ron notaries comes in handy. Like I'm sorry, is your first name, it says M. Arnold, M.
Yeah, that M is my legal first name.
Okay, so we'll go with Arnold. Got it. So Arnold's in Florida. If he isn't, and I'm assuming here, if he isn't bilingual and someone calls him and they say, my client only speaks German, he's not allowed to use a translator. So now he can't do the document either, because his law says he must be able to communicate directly with the signer. But here in Ohio, I can use a translator. So I can use a trusted translator to communicate with the signer. So again, knowing all of these different pivots, I don't want to say loopholes. I don't want to make it sound like it's wrong, because it's not wrong. But when you're able to pivot, you become a solution provider, and you're a better Ron at the end, because they're going to refer you to other people and keep coming back. Make sense?
That's good information, though, and important information, right? Because like I said, we hear all the time, we can do all of these things, and you could do a lot more than the traditional in-person notary probably can, but we still have rules, right, to follow. And, you know, I always say this, it's all being recorded, right? People have access to that. You want to use caution in what you're doing, right? That's important stuff. Doris, you have your hand up. You can unmute and ask away.
Thank you. Hi, Amy.
Welcome.
I'm picking back onto the first conversation with Arnold. I'm on the Notarized platform on demand. I'm also with Cyberize, and I have just signed up with Blue Notary. But on the Notarized platform, they had a Zoom meeting this afternoon, and that question was posed: why the calls come in and you can't click on it fast enough? Come to find out, they have in-house notaries, especially if you're on the Go, the title and lender queue. They have in-house notaries that get those calls first. So that explains why you can't always pick up on those calls. Now, for Amy with Cyberize, getting the notification for the job on board, you should keep that platform open so you can hear the ping, which I don't hear the ping most of the time, but I get the email, and by the time I get the email, the job is gone. So my end question is, trying to get your own clients and being on a platform like Notarize, would it be advantageous to have a separate phone number that a client would call you and prompt you, because you're not always available, you understand, to pick it up and get that client. So how would you work that into your business? If you're doing Cyberize, you're doing Notarize, you're doing Blue Note Notary, so you're not always available to get calls from a client. So how would you, what would be your advice to handle a situation like that? Would it be advantageous to just get a separate phone number that would alert you that you have a call coming in, and the voicemail will say, I would get right back to you, I'm with another client right now, and I get right back to you, or what?
I have one.
So here's what I do. First off, that's a great question. Secondly, what I do is I actually have my phone on my computer. Hold on here. Oh, I can't screen share. So
I can screen share you if you want.
If you could, I'll show my phone system. So this way, when I'm in a RON, I can actually type and text the number right then, and the client never knows that I'm sending a text message. They think I'm typing something on the screen. I never have to pick up my phone. They never see it. They never see me move my eyes away from the screen, but I could still send a message right back to the client. Hey, what's going on? You know, how can I help you, et cetera, et cetera. But what I do also have is I have it going straight to voicemail, and my voicemail tells them the quickest way to get a response from me is to text me. So if you're not on a phone that can get a text message, text me at this number, as I'm probably in a session and I'm not able to actually answer the phone at this time. They do, because they've been told an action item that's going to get me to call back faster. But quite honestly, I never turn my phone on to take in calls. I make everyone text me. There's two reasons for that. One, usually I'm in a Zoom, right? But two, with dealing with online transactions, if I spell something wrong because I heard it wrong, it's going to mess up the entire session for KBA and all of the validations. So I don't want to mess something up. So I make everyone type it. So that kind of kills two birds with one stone.
So you wouldn't get a second phone line, like I think Google has a phone line.
Well, I mean, it is a second phone line, but if you do, get one that actually comes on the computer. So Google Voice would work, or like I have dial pad. It's for one line, it's like $20 a month. I like dial pad because I can give it to everyone. My husband's on here. I can give my login to my husband, and he can be logged into it at the same time as me. So if I'm expecting a really important call, he can actually answer on my behalf. I can delegate assistance and add in team members. So if I needed to, I can, hand it out and do extra stuff. So Google Voice doesn't allow you to do that. You can only be logged in one place. You have to be, it's dedicated to one phone number, And
some smartphones connect to your computer, right? So my smartphone connects to my computer. My text messages and phone calls pop up right on my screen as well. So there are lots of times where I just text back and forth through my computer using my main number. That's totally a personal thing, I think, is how you would feel about it. But thank you, Doris, for your question.
Thank
you. Minnie. Oh, hi, Minnie. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for calling me. Today's my first day.
First day ever as a notary signing agent?
No, on a call with you guys.
Oh, I was going to say, I was super excited for that to be the case.
Oh,
too.
no.
Well, welcome to I hope this meets or exceeds all your expectations.
I couldn't even find the link. I had to dig and figure it out, but I found the link. I went into my email and I put notary, and that's what it came up.
You made it here. That's all that matters.
Yep, but I have a couple of questions. I am a loan signing agent. I've been in the business now like 6 months. I am a realtor. I've been a realtor for over 30 years. Okay, so this is something new to me, all of this. And in reference to the RON, I took the class. Now what? I don't know what to do. So, you know, it's like what do you do next?
What state are you in, Minnie?
I was gonna say Newburgh, New York.
New York. Okay. So the
All right,
first
let
thing,
me ask one thing before we get there. I want to make sure in New York, did you get your exemplar approved?
My what?
Your exemplar approved?
I don't know what that is.
Did you get your e-notary commission from the state already?
I received an email saying that now that I have the RON, that I have to get a new commission number.
Okay, so they should have sent you your new commission number if it was approved. Did you do the application online?
I didn't even do it. I just looked at it and I'm like, you know, I've been so busy. I said I was going to probably do it maybe tomorrow.
Okay, so before you do RON in New York, you have to be commissioned to an electronic notary, and that's, I mean, every state has some sort of rule as to how to do that. So you want to make sure that you know what the rule is in your particular state. Yeah. I'm here in New York with you, so I'm going to make sure that we do this the right way. You're going to go ahead and apply, like it tells you, the $60 to get your new commission. It takes a couple of days. It's super quick. They're going to send you a new card. That new number is your number for electronic and traditional in-person notarization. Your old number goes away, so you're only going to use that new number.
So I have to
have that.
So now I got to go in line, and all those companies that I signed with, I have to go and give them updated information.
Well, you sign up with companies, but you don't have your electronic notary. You've got to, yes, you're going to have to give them your new commission information, but you're also going to have to get an exemplar, which is, you know, it's a sample document from a lot of the platforms that you choose that shows your digital signature and your electronic stamp. And that has to get submitted to the state. And the state has to approve that for every platform that you use. So until you have those two pieces, your new commission number and your exemplar approved, you cannot do RON in New York State.
Exemplar. You know what? When I took the class, I didn't even hear this word.
Okay. What class did you take?
National Notary.
Okay. Well, I think that they do a very generic, broad overview. It's not specific to New York. So having said that, those two things are what you need to do first before you can do RON in New York.
Okay, EXAMPLAR. Somebody just put it in the chat. Yes. Okay.
Florida has something similar, but there's not a requirement to have a separate commission number. You can do it via the same. It's just basically a form that says, what platforms are I using? When did I take one? I've done 3 already. I had one initially, then I took one off and I put the other 2 on. So those are the 2, Notarize and Blue Notary, that I have. So it's just a form. You have to change it within 30 days of you changing whatever your platforms are.
When you say a little different, hers is a little different than that, Arnold. This form, she actually has to sign with her digital certificate, usually issued from IdenTrust, and then put her electronic stamp on the document, and then the Secretary of State's office will analyze it to make sure that it meets the security protocols that the law has set forth. Okay. So and then they have it on record so that no matter what platform she's using, they'll be able to make sure that I call it the digital background matches every single time, because that's what they're looking for. Okay.
Florida does not require that apparently, but you do.
No, they do require you to have one, but they don't validate it.
Right. And you just have to register it with the platform. That's all.
Right. Yeah. Right. So like here in Ohio, they don't require it at all. And until your law went into place, they didn't require it in New York either. Under the temporary law, they didn't require it either. Correct. So it's a big change.
It's a huge, big change. That's why I say make sure you do those 2 pieces. Without those 2 pieces, you are not allowed to perform RON in New York State. We want to make sure that no one gets in trouble.
This company did call me up and they trying to get me to sign up with them, and they like pushing me, and I don't like when you try to push me. It seems like you're just caring about getting another number. So I told them that I didn't want to talk to them right now. I wanted to just give it some time. I want to do some, some research and whatnot. They call me, they emailing me, they like at me. And like when you're saying about the platforms, I'm still trying to understand what these platforms are. It's confusing.
It is confusing. And, an important piece of the New York State law is that you are responsible as the notary to make sure the platform you choose is compliant with New York state law. And that is not where most of us are comfortable, right? I'm not a technologically savvy person. So, you know, I want assurances in writing on letterhead from the platform that I would choose, indicating that they're compliant. So should there be an issue down the road, I have some recourse. And I will say that for any state, no one should push you into picking a platform that you are not comfortable with, right? It is just, it's no different than choosing anything else in life. Whatever you choose should be user-friendly for you, right? Meets your business model. I don't know what your intent is on using a platform for Ron. Is it general notary work? Are you doing loan signings? Is it just for your company? Like, all of those things are important things to know before you choose a platform. And I'm not going to run over Amy because she's the expert here, but I'm going to say from a layperson point of view, and I'm going to turn it over to Amy to tell you what else you should look for. I think it's important to pick the platform that you're comfortable with, right? Like, exactly. I don't know, that's sort of how I feel about it, but Amy's going to tell me if I'm right or wrong about that.
I appreciate that.
No problem. Yeah, the one thing I would say is hire. Okay, so number one, you got to use a state approved platform in New York. Okay, not every state approves platforms. So if you're in a state that doesn't approve them, like in Ohio, you're going to want to make sure you do your due diligence. But I want everyone here to realize, even if your state gives an approved platform list, you're still responsible if it's not done right. So even though the state has said this software meets our standards and you can use it, if it's not doing it or you're doing it wrong, the software company is not liable in any way, shape, or form, because we offer those aspects and it was you who made the decision to do it outside of that scope. Make sense?
Wow. So
the buck doesn't stop with software, the buck stops with the notary every single time. So always remember that.
Would I have to get a separate type of insurance now?
You'll want to make sure that your insurance includes online notarizations.
Oh, right.
So if it doesn't, then yeah, you're going to want to. I know mine, they had to do an additional rider just to add online notarization as an insured aspect for my E&O.
Wow. I had to bump mine up from like 7,500 for regular GNW work to 25,000 for Ron. And now I'm seeing some of those signing companies saying they need $100,000, you know.
Yeah, Notarize, you have to have $100,000 if you're on gold and, you know, for doing title and lender.
So I would definitely double check your E&O to make sure you're covered. Let's put it that way.
Thank you.
Secondly, when you're looking at platforms, you need to think about your clients. Who are your prospective market? Where are you going to market? And I say that because, and I haven't read up on your new law, so bear with me. I only read the part where it said I couldn't be a platform. Then I stopped. But if you want or are able to use oath of credible witness, for example, on the notarized platform, which I know they're not in your state either, but you can't use oath of credible witness on notarized because you can't add two signers and override somebody. They removed that. It's only personally known, or they have to go through ID verification. So in Ohio, I can take oath of a third person as validation of who that person is that's signing in front of me, because maybe they can't get the KVA questions, knowledge-based authentication process, the quiz. And if they can't get the quiz, and I know that's required in New York, then you need to use this alternative form of verification. So knowing the limits of the software will help you know where to market. If you can't use, Marcy, are you able to use credible witness with Ron?
Not with Ron.
Okay.
Nope, so it's the KBA identity, or it's the personally known as.
Okay, so you would be fine with any platform in New York, but you know, if you're in a different state, you want to make sure you pay attention to that. But knowing that you have to get KBA questions for your clients now begs another question. Does this platform pull KBA from LexisNexis or from the credit reporting agencies? Because if they require a social, then they're going to need to be a US citizen. So that alienates all of the foreign signers. So you have to find US citizens.
Wow.
Now, some platforms won't use LexisNexis, and they actually use the public databases that the government agencies across the United States have, which means they can pull KBA on international signers with no credit history, just because they've lived or done stuff here, but they are not actually US citizens. So that opens more doors if you use a platform that doesn't require a US Social Security number. And to be clear, a taxpayer identification number is not the same thing, and neither is an EIN. It has to be an SSN for some platforms, all right? The reason for this is because in order to find these, there are a static list of questions. So each platform has about 50 questions that are pre-saved. What year were you born? What state were you born in? What color was your blah, blah vehicle? What year was your blah, blah vehicle? And it fills in the details from public records. But we can only search public records from the United States and a little bit in Mexico, but not very much in some platforms. So if someone's lived in Spain their entire life and they need to notarize a document because they just inherited a property in Ohio and they want to do it online, it is almost impossible for them. It literally is impossible to get those random questions because they've never lived here, they weren't born here, they've no bills here, they've never had any public records here. And Spain is not going to let us search their databases for this person. We can only search USA and a little bit of Mexico. So that falls into how you market and where you market to, because even though we can sign for international, if they qualify through the ID verification, your platform's going to limit you on those options based upon how they generate those verification processes. All right, you follow me so far?
Very confusing.
I know.
It's a lot of information, right? It's not as simple as
it is a lot of information.
Yeah.
So
don't
if
pick
I
the
wanted,
platform that sends you work or is free.
Where would I go to get this information in the future?
For this detailed information, you'll have to go to each platform and ask them specifically. Okay, because there's no, I mean, Notary Stars has a good review over the platforms, as in like a tear sheet is what they call it. Let's see. No, okay, I have to find it. But they ask the platforms to supply a lot of data, but it still doesn't include everything that I now wish I would have known before I picked my first RON platform. And, you know, really quick, Marcy, I didn't do an intro, so let me let everyone know exactly who I am.
Yeah.
So just so you guys know, my name's Amy. I'm an Ohio notary of over 20 years on loan signing agent and a RON, but I also created the software platform Cyberize It. So I actually own a RON platform. And so that's why I know a lot of the back end work of what's in the software. And when I first started out as a RON, I joined a platform. It was expensive. In general, it's still expensive comparatively. It's a good platform. It's qualified. It meets all the criteria. But in the first 7 weeks, I had spent $7,000 because of the amount of work I was doing and into that platform. And that didn't set well with me. So that's when I went on the search for more. So that's kind of where I come in from this. All right, so we went over what works for you, what's allowed in your state, and then how do you plan to market and then with your customer base, right? After that, then you need to start looking at what kind of IDs can I use legally And what does the platform allow? So all of them will allow for USA driver's licenses. All of them will allow for USA passports, but do they allow international passports? Do they allow military IDs? Do they allow state IDs? Do they allow overseas driver's licenses? Do they allow overseas IDs? Because every state's different. So like here in Ohio, I just have to have a valid government issued ID. In Florida, if it's not a USA document, it has to be a passport from a different country. It can't be a driver's license. Mm-hmm. So we all need to understand what IDs can be used legally and what does the platform allow for. Mm-hmm. So if the platform doesn't allow for international passports, well, Arnold's going to be up a creek because he can't get his clients validated who are international signers.
And the other thing is you also have to be very careful with pictures on those IDs. Now, Florida does allow the use of an expired driver's license if it's only 5 years less, if it hasn't been expired for at least 5 years. But you really have to be careful because that could be a 12-year spread in terms of the picture versus their live image. So, for example, a driver's license in Florida is valid for 7 years. And you can then use that expired license for up to 5 years after it expires. But at the end of that picture is 12 years old. And is that person going to look the same in their live image as what's in that picture? You got to be very careful.
In addition to that, you also have to keep in mind the software limitations. A lot of platforms won't approve an expired ID through the automated process. So even if your state allows for it, a lot of them will say no because not every state does, and they'll immediately disqualify that ID. So keep that in mind too. So that's something else to think about.
And you have to worry about lighting, because sometimes if you try to take a picture of the photo and there's bad lighting, it's not going to take it. And you could spend 20 to 30 minutes trying to get the picture right because the lighting doesn't work.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. But that's all in the client. That's just taking a good image.
Right.
Finally, then you need to start looking at, okay, what is in it for me with this platform? Is it cost effective? Do they have good tech support? How am I going to get help? What kind of training, onboarding process do I have? Some platforms are email support only, and they'll respond within 7 days. Clients can't wait 7 days. So if you have a tech support issue and you email them, you've just lost that client because that client's going to go somewhere else to get it done. So you've got to keep that in mind too. So those would be the things that I looked at now, hindsight, right? But those were the things that I wish I would have known when I first started. But the last thing I want to keep in mind, because you're like, I'm a Ron, now what?
Yeah.
Well, now it's, you've got to get clients. And even if you're an established notary, your current clients are not going to just flip to the electronic one. You've got to design an entire different business plan. You've got to start marketing to an entire different clientele, and you're building a brand new business from scratch. I've got seasoned notaries that fail at Ron. I've got brand new notaries that succeed because these brand new notaries are directly looking for online work. Seasoned notaries are like, well, I'm adding it to my wallet. I'm going to have it ready to pull out when I need it. And you can't do that. That's just not how this works. So you've got to have a clear plan on how you want to get your business and who you're going to get business from. If you offer in-person sessions and you offer Ron, you have to have a different marketing projection because your local business is going to want you to go in person. And if you're going to do Ron, then you need to be marketing outside of your general in-person work. Wow. And marketing for online work. Always let the people in person know that you do it, but you've got to expand that marketing campaign beyond your zip code.
Probably that's where Google Business helps you a little bit because
it doesn't.
Doesn't?
No, Google Business will help you with an in-person work because it's zip code based. You got to think outside of the zip code.
Okay.
So
they do.
So then how do you expand yourself in reference to the building the business?
So you got to sign up with as many service-led search areas as possible, and you need to add virtual locations across the United States so that you get phone calls from everywhere. So here I did Thumbtack. It's expensive, right? But what I did was I created one profile to get started, and wait till you see, hold on here, it's loading. It's loading. I should have had it on the right page. I created all of these profiles. I have virtual locations all over the United States. And even though I have my account turned off at the moment, that's why it's got the credit card error up there, because I deleted my card. If you search my business, hold on here, we got to go a little bit, but if we keep going, look, it still comes up. That's a Thumbtack ad. And as I go through, it will still pop up. There it is again, that same one. And I'm not paying for this. Here's another one. This gets me more business than what you would imagine. Okay.
The Thumbtack gives you a lot of business.
Yeah. And I don't even pay for it because I turned my credit card off. See, I don't even have it on, but it's still giving me leads through SEO searches just because I have all of these profiles listed with them.
Wow. Wow.
Okay. And if I turn this on, it gets very expensive. So please keep that in mind. If you turn it on to get leads, it is costly. I think in 1 month, I ended up paying them $1,400 in leads for a month. But on the flip side, I made like $2,000 a week. So I did get a good return, but I'm also a very good salesperson. So when people called, all I did was offered online. Obviously, I'm dealing with people in like California. There's no way I can show up at their door, right? And even if I did, I couldn't notarize. So I had to convert them because that was the only way I was going to get my money back. So that's how I started doing this and getting a full-time income out of it. It took me 7 weeks to go from 0 to 2,000 in a week.
Wow.
But I was spending about $600 in advertising a week. So yeah, exactly. So yeah, and if I didn't convert, I lost, right? So you got to be comfortable, you got to be confident, and you got to be, you know, you got to have the charisma to get it sold.
Is it all right if I have your contact information, Miss Amy?
Sure. I'll put it in. I'm just going to put my email in here because like I said, I send my phone all to voicemail.
I just looked you up. Okay. It says 614-368-1106.
Yeah, that'll go to voicemail.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll text you then. Say, hey, text you.
Exactly.
It's me, Minnie Thomas. Okay. Thank you.
So
no problem.
Let me just touch on that. Amy, something that's an important point that you made is that when we talk about being an in-person notary, right, a traditional notary, and people who do loan signings, the marketing piece isn't as prevalent, right, as it is with Ron. Like we can sign up at, you can put a Google ad in, right, or talk to your neighbor or talk to your local bank, and you're right there, it's in person. But really, marketing sales is a much larger piece of building your business for remote online notarization than it is for traditional notarization. Would you agree with that?
You definitely have to be more creative in how you do a digital marketing, because you're right. You lose that connection that, oh, this is my corner notary, this is the president of the PTA, and now da 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 da. You lose that. But if you're creative with your marketing and you're creative with your location of your marketing, you can still generate that business. So here's another thing that I do. Again, this is free. So I'm on Facebook and I just did a search because I want to target people that are looking for me, right? They're looking for a notary, ISO, in search of notary, right? And now I'm going to click on posts. And now, yesterday, Braxton, in search of a notary ASAP. Dylan, 6 days ago, and I could search it, date posted 2023, recent posts. I could even say a tagged location if I wanted to, right? So 2 hours ago, Crystal needs a notary in Florida. She's in Venice. All right. I would go through and I'll comment on these 4 hours ago. So here we go. Ready? I'll say, boom. Okay. Now they're going to have to approve my post, but we'll go through and you know, I would do that. Like Brandy, I would do this. I do this roughly every 2 days.
Wow, save.
Okay. The other thing that I do, let me switch to my business profile here. And let's see. The other thing that I do is I check in on existing businesses. So here we go. Rick's on the River. I was in Tampa. Okay. You don't even have to be there. So I go in, I make a post, and I check in at the restaurant. You know, let's see here. I gotta find another one here. Hold on. Here we go. Louisiana. I check in different streets or different areas. I checked in at a seasoning company because we cooked with seasoning that night, you know? So I checked in and gave my business information. This is free. And it doesn't, you know, it's just a little bit of sweat. I checked in at FedEx because guess what? FedEx has their ads for Notarize, which takes away the business from the independent notary. So I'm going to check in at FedEx every time I can so that when people search FedEx and notary, they come up with us too. You know? So you just got to check in all of these different places and you will be surprised at how much engagement you get. Like I checked in at DC. I checked in impound lots. I checked in overseas.
Excuse me. When you say checked in, you click on it or something and make
a comment? Here, watch. Let me just copy this. Okay. Give me a place. Someone give me a location. What kind of place should we check into?
Billy Joe's in Newburgh, New York.
Billy Joe's? Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to click new post. Mm-hmm. I'm going to paste my post because I just copied it.
Yeah.
I'm going to click check in. You said Billy
Joe's, Joe. Newburgh. There it is right
there. There we go. So I'm going to check in there. And now every time someone checks their Facebook page, it'll have it on there.
Oh, okay. Okay. Mm.
Now I wouldn't like spam the same business all the time. I only do it once, but I'll check in like at the consulate offices where people would go in international company or international locations. But yeah, so now if you go to Billy Joe's Rib Works and you check in, there's like, where is it? Check-ins. Oh, how do you see it? Somehow you can see it, but it shows up on their page somewhere.
That's it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, but that will also generate visualization of your brand.
Mm-hmm.
Does those ideas help with kind of how to get it out there without having to pay?
Of course, yes.
That was super helpful information. Minnie, did you have another question? Did someone else have
good. I'm good. I'm just tired. I had a long day. I just came home from my office and all of a sudden it popped up on my calendar. My calendar rang and said notary class. I said, oh my God. So I came down here. So I'm like whipped right now.
Take the load off. It's fine. You can just listen in.
No, I really appreciate it. This is good. So do you meet every week? How How is this done?
We meet once a month, the first Thursday of every month. We do
Oh,
a
okay.
roundtable from
Oh,
7 to
okay.
8. We just have different people pop in and chat, and Amy graciously agreed to come this Thursday.
Okay.
Could I ask a question that isn't necessarily Ron related, but general notary work related? And that has to do with electronic journals. Everybody knows the standard book that you get where you write everything in and so on and so forth. But me being the computer nerd was wondering, why can't there be such things as an electronic journal that you can put everything in? I know, and I have one of them. I just actually found a company. I was just curious. You'll see here, if I can show it. It's called Notarize Act. Okay.
I've never heard of that one, but.
Do you mean Notary Act?
Notary Act, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Okay.
Notary Act, okay.
Yep.
And it lets me actually record live events, even though they weren't entered through the journal. I can actually do them through the journal. I can actually do ID verification with it and all that good stuff. So fair enough.
There's actually 3 very prominent. Amy put one in. There's Notary Act and Jurat Inc. and Verilog is another one. And we did demos with all 3 of these. I will post in the chat. If you're looking or thinking about an electronic journal, you can go on here on our site and take a look and see if any of these work for you. If your state allows electronic journals. I know not every state.
Mine does. So, okay.
That's pretty
The other question I have is, will this chat, you're recording this chat, will you be able to send the link for everybody to be able to download the recording?
Yep, we will send the link after it's done. We'll post it too goes on our YouTubes and our both for PNS and for NYNA. Absolutely.
And if you want to save the chat right now, just click the 3 dots in the chat area, like if you're going to send something to somebody, and click the save chat link. It pops up. So like if it's on the bottom right corner, it says to everyone, type your message here, and it's got icons with a smiley face, and then there's 3 dots. Click save chat and it'll save all of the chat to your hard drive.
But not
it won't work on a phone.
Not the video recording.
Not the video. The video you'll have to look out on our thing, but if you want the links and everything in the chat, just click that and it'll save it right to your hard drive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we put that'll be saved too as a separate link for our
oh, cool.
With our video too. We like to put that out there because I know I'm never good about remembering to save the chat. I'll make sure that you guys all get it too.
Okay.
Who else has a question? It can be any question, just doesn't have to be a Ron question. We can try to answer. Don't make it like a baseball question. I don't follow baseball.
Yeah, no, me either. I don't get out. You know what? Today was really nice. I actually got out. It was a little warmer today than it was lately. I can't wait till the weather's warmer. I can't wait to be down there with Arnold in Florida. You know, this is my dream.
Don't do it during August, September, October, because that's hurricane season.
Well, I'll tell you what. So we want to be snowbirds, and if there's no questions, this will actually lead into something that's interesting to know. And so we're here in Ohio, and we're going to eventually move to Florida. Hopefully, we're going to be like in our RV. So we plan to be Florida residents. So I have to rescind or give my resignation to Ohio, and then become a Florida resident, and then get my Florida notary commission. After 12 months, effective December 29th of this year, I can then reapply back to Ohio and become dual commissioned. So then when we're in the north in Ohio during the hot time, I can be an Ohio notary for 4 months. And then when I go back to Florida, I operate as a Florida notary, because we always have to be within our state's jurisdiction to do an online notarization.
So
that was the next thing I wanted to bring up, because that is an important piece of Ron, right? Let's talk about that. We talk about the signer being anywhere, right? But the notary still has to be within their jurisdiction. Right? Are we still talking about that? So, you know, this was a big thing in New York, and using a VPN and not using a VPN because you wanted to hide the location. So, you know, I want to make sure we reiterate that, and I know Amy said this as well. You know, there are notaries who will head out on vacation, right, and think, no big deal, I'm on vacation, I'll do a notary while I'm out here in Ohio visiting Amy, even though I am a New York notary. Not allowed, right? Can't do it.
No, and just so you guys know, it does get encoded on the document where you're physically at. So every time you notarize something, the location of the signer and the location of the notary are digitally encoded on that document. And if you use a VPN, it's encoded on there that you did that as well. So if it ever came into question, they can come back and actually challenge your notarization just because you used a VPN. Now, keep in mind, using a VPN does not mean you're automatically committing fraud. You could use a VPN if you're using a mobile hotspot instead of using the McDonald's Wi-Fi, because you're trying to protect your client from using a free Wi-Fi where someone could get into your system, right? There's legitimate reasons. However, New York has said you cannot use a private VPN in order to mask your location. So that means your software system cannot allow for a VPN at all in New York, which is the reason that I am not open there. And I have a specific reason. I actually have clients that are in witness protection. If I turn on the VPN alienation, I cannot notarize for my clients in witness protection because they have to use VPN. So it was a toss up, and I chose my clients over the state of New York. All right. So
We're not
that's the
offended.
only reason.
If you don't mind my asking, Amy, what part of Ohio in general are you located? I know some things about it, but not
I'm right in Columbus. I'm in the capital.
One of my best school classmates has set up, he's like the headmaster of a private school in Columbus, the Wellington School.
I think I've heard of it, but I'm not familiar with it too much.
Yeah, he's one of my classmates from high school. He runs that now. So his name is Robert Brisk. So
very cool. So to piggyback onto this subject, each state has their own parameters. All right. And in Ohio, I physically have to have my feet in Ohio to do in-person IPEN or RON, a remote online electronic signature. If I take one step over the border, I've got to stop. And I will tell you that I travel, and at times I've been really close to the border of Ohio, and I was technically in Ohio, but I still handed the transaction off because I was worried that it might reflect a different location just because I was so close to the border. So keep that in mind too. You want to always make sure you're documenting exactly where you're at the time of the session. If you're in states like, so the only state that I can think of off the top of my head that allows for outside of the state notarization is Virginia. So
I think
Virginia,
it's the only one, right?
I think so. That's the only one I thought Montana did, but they only allow that for in-person and not RON. Yeah. And I think that's silly, but whatever.
And New Jersey too for in-person, but not RON. But that's
okay. Yeah. So in Virginia, if you are a RON and you are outside of the state, if you're employed by the government, you can notarize for your employer from anywhere in the world. And no matter where the document's going, if it's for the government and you're a RON notary and you work for them, you can notarize for anyone in the world, no matter where you are. If you are outside of your state and you're not a government employee, you can only notarize the document if it's going to be filed in Virginia. So they can't notarize the sale of a property in Florida or Ohio. They could notarize the sale of a property in Virginia. So, they wouldn't be able to like jump on, log in to notarize and start taking calls. But if they had to bring their own clients and they knew where the documents were going, they could still perform that session outside of their state barriers.
So important information. And as we always talk about, as a notary, you are personally liable, right? I always love to say this because I think sometimes we forget, and you don't want to be that person who didn't follow the rules. And now that notarization may not be valid because who are they coming back for? Probably you. And if this is how you make your living and this is your livelihood, you don't want to lose your commission. You don't want to lose your house and your car and your bank account, all those things you work for. So I know sometimes we'll hear notaries be like, well, we'll never find out. It's no big deal. It's just one time. I don't know. I'm that person who always feels like I will be caught that one time. Like I always think I'm that girl. So just be careful. Someone wants to know about using a platform. How to use a mobile hotspot if doing Ron. Is that stable enough? And again, here's my non-technologically individual coming out and asking, is that a stable internet connection to do Ron? Is the person on this end is the notary?
Yeah. So I've done it with my phone turned into a hotspot, and I actually have a mobile hotspot, a jetpack that I got a second, like I bought it through my cell phone provider so that I can do that because like I mentioned, we spend a lot of time in our camper. And one of the things we're testing this summer is we are doing 6 weeks in our camper over the summer to see if we like it, whether or not we actually will be able to live in it like for a couple of years. So this summer is our testing. So we'll be in Ohio, so I can still notarize, but I will be using my hotspot in order to do the notarizations and run the platform.
Yeah, I was always taught not to trust wireless. And personally myself, I'm not a wireless person. I'm pretty much wired. I got wires all over my house. I had to break and get a hotspot recently for my doorbell camera, as well as I've discovered that I can actually save money on my phone by using that as opposed to using the cellular service. So, but anyway.
So it really depends on the carrier and the location that you're at. Obviously, if you don't have cell service, you're not going to have a hotspot, you know? So that falls into play there. But, and then they cap the data. So you've got to be very careful about which plan you get from your carrier, whether they cap your data, because then it gets really slow.
All right, that's a good point.
Who
else has any questions? Oh,
I see another question in the chat. Jessica asked, does the platform reject your session if you're using a VPN? And the answer is only in New York, because they're the only state that says you cannot use a VPN. So if a platform is operating in New York, they are legally responsible to block all VPNs from accessing their platform.
So I'm going to preface that by saying there are some platforms who don't believe that it's their responsibility to block the VPN. So there are some platforms currently saying they're compliant in New York who do block VPNs. There are other ones who say they're compliant in New York. They feel like it's not their responsibility and they don't block VPNs. At the end of the day, the law says you as the notary, again, are responsible for making sure you're not using the device that blocks your location. So even if that platform doesn't block you, you still can't use one. I know it's one of those things where you would hope that everyone would.
Did they officially rule that way, Marcy? Is that how
they didn't rule either way? The state came out and said, this is what we think. You have to interpret it the way that you want to have it interpreted. And several platforms just felt like that was not the interpretation that they were the view they were taking.
Okay. Well, then maybe I could open back up. I might just have New York notaries sign a release that says, please understand the platform does not block VPN access, and it is your duty to follow your laws, and you solemnly agree that you will not utilize a VPN to notarize.
I mean, certainly that's the case, right? Like everything within that law where there's a little bit of a little bit of play here, always comes back to the notary. It's the notary's responsibility no matter what. So
yeah, I felt uncomfortable about it. The way I read it, I felt that it was my job as the software.
yeah,
But at the same time, if they're not enforcing it as in this or that, then, you know, maybe it is something that I can revisit.
they're not enforcing it. They've come out pretty much and said that's the interpretation is up to you and up to the platform. It's your responsibility as a notary to make sure the platform you have is compliant and you are following the rules. And I would assume, and I say this is an assumption, which I agree, if I agree never to use a VPN, then you should never have an issue because I'm never going to use one, right? You don't need to block it for me because I'm not going to use it. But then you end up with the honor system of a notary and therein, you know, I don't know. That's sort of where you sit, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's never the aircraft's fault. It's always the pilot's fault.
Right. Let's see. There was another question in here. Process the biggest this says, is it worth pursuing? Okay, so Denise, I'm going to turn that back around. Is it worth pursuing? Only if you're going to advertise and market, because clients are not just going to start calling you to do online notarizations. You've got to put it out there. You've got to be steadfast in how you do your business in order to do it. I will say when I started, I did 6 in-person signings. 6. I've been a notary over 20 years, always been an employer notary. I did it for my job, right? I did 6 in-person signings and I was like, yeah, forget this, not doing anymore. At that point, I told everyone, you're doing it online or go keep calling down the phone tree for another notary. And I had the financial status to be able to do that. I worked full-time for the government. I didn't need the money as a notary. It was not my income. And I had that ability, and not everyone does. So I always understand we can't always say it's my way or the highway in business, right? But if you have that ability, or if that's how you want your business to grow, then you always need to lead with a better way or a cheaper way of doing it online versus them waiting for you in person. So actually, a friend of mine sent me a message the other day and she's like, Amy, I used your trick. I got a phone call. And when they called, they said, I need this done. It's kind of urgent. And she says, well, we can do it in an hour if we do it online. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait because my next in-person booking is not until tomorrow at 5. And guess what? They did it online. So you got to make it to where it's to their advantage to get it done online and faster. All right. Otherwise, people are not going to buy into it. Make sense?
Yeah, that does.
And I want to say this too, as for the loan signing piece. I know we hear this all the time, but it's loan signings are still traditionally done in person, right? You're not, I know everyone's like, it's so much better to do online. We don't see, it is not the biggest portion of RON being done traditionally in this country right now. It's not loan signings, right? And certainly the signings that are being done are, like Amy said, cash purchases, seller sides, loan modifications, home equity lines of credit, right? And then depending on the area of the world that you are, so I know Denise and I are in New York, you're not going to see purchase closings being done here by RON anytime soon. We have attorneys and realtors, all people who come to closing. It's not going to be traditional in that regard. So, you know, I think that it's important to keep in mind, and I think Amy will admit this too, it's not one or the other. You don't need to stop doing in-person loan signings because you want to do, you know, RON or vice versa. You can build and develop a great business by doing a bunch of different things. And I've seen lots of successful notaries online who do loan signings in person and they do general notary work by RON and they make a great living. So I think that's important. But I think the loan signing piece, and I'm not going to blame it on any particular platform, but some of the platforms come out and make it sound like all their RON work is loan signings, and I am not entirely believing that's the case. So
we know better than that.
Yeah, please don't be that person.
I will say, like Pavaso is, and you know, those ones are.
Yeah.
But anyone that is like Notarize or Blue Notary or even me, the majority of my work is is general notary. I'll get divorces on the job board, but we'll get random like real estate documents, but real estate's hard. And the reason that it's hard for Ron is there's a few things that go into factor on top of the other regulations we already said. Does the underwriter approve of the platform? Right. Does the underwriter allow for this? And then we get in the e-note and the vaults and the resellability of an e-note over a traditional note. And it's a lot more than just, can we do it online?
And you have to be careful, right? I just had a client call me last week who said we had to use a Virginia notary because it was a Virginia property. And the individuals were in Japan and they hired a Virginia notary, and the platform that notary used was not approved by the underwriter, Fidelity.
Oh boy.
And that transaction had to be completely canceled and they had to do it all over again with another notary. So when it comes to loan signings, and Amy is right, Pavaso is a different beast. Like, you can't go join Pavaso, you can get there for someone else. But there's the reason why Pavaso is the way that it is because there are multiple layers to a loan signing as to who has to approve and what everyone needs in that process. So it's not as simple as someone coming to you and being like, hey, I need this permission slip notarized for my daughter's field trip, right? And you're going to ask them, hey, will the school take it? And they're going to say yes or no, and you're good to go. You've got a lender and a title insurance underwriter and all these other parties in a loan signing that have to be okay. And what you don't want to have happen, not that it's your fault, but like I said, this notary, she was like, yeah, my platform is totally compliant, not a problem. And everyone was like, your platform was not compliant. And now what if that person's rate had been expiring or their credit documents were expiring or something else happened? Who do you think that they're going to go after for whatever cost was now? Right. I know. So loan signings to me are a different beast. I'm just that person. There's more to it than just jumping online and notarizing. And you want to be cautious with that. Amy makes a great point in saying that. There are just some things that we're not privy to when it comes to loan signing.
It's a matter
I don't want to miss the train.
It's a matter of all it's a matter of all the different documents too. I mean, like, how do you communicate an right of rescission, 2 copies to a signer who has to take the 2 copies? I mean, yeah, you could print them, but still they've got to, you got to explain them. You can't do that. Or I should say it's more difficult to do it via Ron, but.
And I want to throw in just a little bit here because I know Fidelity. I've talked to them a lot. You guys have to remember, being approved by the underwriters is not necessarily that the software does anything special.
Correct.
In order to get approved for Fidelity, I have to pay $7,000 a year.
Wow.
Just for them to put me on their list. It's a matter of money, and I won't do it. I've point blank told them I'm not going to do it. It's not worth it to me. They won't guarantee me any work. And all they're doing is putting my name on a list. I will send the work to the other platforms who are willing to spend that money because I'm small business. I can't afford that.
Yeah,
For the amount of work I turn away, it's literally like 3 jobs a month. It's not worth $7,000 a year for me to invest that into it. So
it's like how bad do you want us?
At some point, they're going to have to rethink their thing, because I've literally had clients cancel with them so they could use us because they can't use another platform based upon, every platform does the same basic things, but all of them cater to different clients. So like our system doesn't use credit for KBA, and we're one of the few, and they can't validate on any other platform, so they can't get the job done. So guess who changes? Not the notary. So they've actually lost business because they won't work with me. So that's on them. I'm sure they lost a lot more than $7,000. So I want to give a distinguishing comment. And this is something that I kind of have an issue with in general, and it's everyone does this. And I've used the word all night tonight too, but the idea behind this, I want everyone to remember, signing service platforms do not the platform term does not mean the same with RON platforms. So you have signing service platforms that provide you work. You have RON solutions providers that provide you a service. All right. So even if you got in here and you signed up with every RON platform, you're going to be out a whole lot of money, and you're not going to have very much of a return, because we keep thinking platforms provide work, right? Everyone says sign up with as many platforms as you can. No. With RON, you want to have multiple platforms. I have 3. I have my own, and I'm signed up on Notarize and OneNotary. All right. Because I want to have solutions for my clients when I need them, because I'm a full-time notary, right? But I only have one that I pay for, and the rest are all free. And that way I can follow in. So like with the fidelity work, Notarize pays to be on the list. So I run those clients through Notarize, and I pay the transaction fee, but I don't pay per month. I only pay per month for the one platform. And yes, I still charge myself a subscription fee to my own platform, just so you know. But the idea behind it is you only pay for one bring your own transaction platform. So like Arnold says he's with Blue Notary. Well, unless he's getting a ton of work from Blue Notary to substantiate that cost, he shouldn't sign up with Cyberize it, because he's going to have double the cost and no added increase to his business plan. Right?
Well, he probably will anyway. But
you know what? Here's the thing. This is the one thing I want everyone to realize. I'm telling you the truth, even though I would love to tell you, oh, sign up. But no, you don't need to. We all are equal, and you don't want to double pay. That's just bad business for you. You know,
one of the unfortunate things that I've heard, for example, about Notarize is that when you bring clients to them, the next time you need something notarized with that client, they get put in the general pool, and they're not necessarily assigned to you.
If that client initiates the transaction, that's 100% true.
Mm-hmm.
If you initiate, then they don't. But they have to reach you direct in order for you to initiate that transaction.
You have to be able to send them the email link to be able to.
Yep.
I mean, it's a business. We're all in this as a business, right? I mean, I know, and I hear it all the time, or I see it on the social media platforms and in the groups, people are complaining, but at the end of the day, we're all here just to make money. I mean, I say this in a way of not taking advantage of people, but I mean, we are all business people, right? We all are here to earn a buck. I know you may not like this platform or the other, or vice versa, but that's a matter of you choosing the platform that you want. At the end of the day, they have to make a buck too. Like it's just how it sort of works out.
And I actually wrote an article for Notary Stars, and they published it like last week. And I said that we're seeing underhanded marketing techniques by RON platforms, because we're not seeing an increase in successful RON notaries. We're seeing newbies that, get on there thinking that everything's just going to fall in. And then after a month, they drop out because they didn't get a single phone call this month. I'm not going to keep paying this bill. Or we're seeing vetted, like, good clients, like notaries that have a substantial client list, that sign up thinking, oh, well, I'll add it because I think my clients will like it. And then they don't like it, or they don't sell it well because that doesn't bring them money. Right. So then they drop out too. So we really are only retaining and bringing in income, because again, platforms earn money by transaction. So if you're not bringing in transactions too, we're not getting money there either, right? So we're only seeing about, I'm going to say a good estimate is 20% of the people who sign up on my platform are actually successful. The rest go back to what they were doing because they are not able to push it enough to bring in business. So it's a dog eat dog world right now with as many platforms that are coming out. There's not enough notaries to go around that actually can turn a profit. And that gets a little hairy because I've got people, they literally cold called my daughter and said, I see you're on Cyberize it. What would it take to get you to transition to blah, blah, blah platform? And she went, excuse me? She's like, do you know who you're talking to? And they're like, well, this is Taylor with Cyberize. You're on the Cyberize platform, right? She goes, do you realize my mother owns Cyberize it?
Click.
And that's exactly they said something a little unprofessional and hung up. But this stuff is happening, and someone talked earlier. They're pushing for you to join platforms, and I don't do that. Honestly, I'm of the opinion, if you join, you join. If you don't, you don't. Because at the end of the day, I wrote my software for me. I can sustain the cost of my platform without another notary being on it. So whether you're on it or not, it's just bonus, I'm going to flip into the chat again, Marcy. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. If
All
anyone
right.
has any questions too, certainly feel free to unmute and ask. We'll answer one or two more, and then we'll let everyone head out to their evening.
Hello tonight.
Yes,
Jessica asked, how can you tell if you're on a VPN? You specifically have to connect through a third-party portal. So it's something you would sign up for if you were doing it. So it would be like, there's a whole lot of different VPNs out there, but you would have to sign into a special place in order to connect to the internet. So you would know.
Some of them actually require installation, right? So like,
yeah, exactly.
Or your antivirus, like Norton or McAfee, a lot of times they have a plugin for a VPN that will turn on when you turn your computer on and off.
Mm-hmm.
I use NordVPN myself, but I actually got rid of it because I really didn't need it.
Yeah. Let's see. She was contacted to do a refi. It was your first one. Asked the signing service if my platform was acceptable, and they said they do not know. And there were, a lot of times people don't know that different underwriters have different lists until it gets rejected. And in those instances, that would not be your fault because you said, is this platform acceptable? And they said yes. So you did your due diligence to ask that question. So kudos to you.
And you want to save that in writing somewhere. I'm that person. I know I probably look crazy, but I like everything in writing and saved somewhere so that later on when they come back and say to me, hey, this happened, I can be like, I asked
you, why didn't you check? Why didn't you validate? A lot of times, like the title agency, I'm going to get one this week, apparently. And they called me and they said, Amy, we got another Ron, but the underwriter has questions. They want to know, how do you get your KBA? Okay, so I told them how we got our KBA. And they said, and they want to know if, and they said, we can only use a Virginia notary because they're international signers. And I'm like, dude, that's old news. I mean, that's like ancient history news. All states can validate an international signer some way, shape, form. It just depends on how you validate in order to get that job done. It's literally old news. It frustrates me to no end. However, we can work with that if that's what they absolutely want, but their law is outdated. So anyway, you will deal with people who are hell-bent. It's this way, this way, this way. And there's really not a lot you can do to convince them otherwise. You just kind of got to go, we can accommodate that. However, I want you to know international signers can be validated by a lot of different states. And if you'd ever like to sit down and have a conversation about that later, because they're trying to get the job done right now, right? You ever want to have a conversation about that? I would love to sit down and tell you exactly how all of the state laws have advanced in the last few years. Virginia is no longer special. Okay. And then we move forward. But it works. A lot of times they'll call me back after and they'll be like, okay, well, the underwriter wants to know what you meant by that and how does that impact this and da 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 da. So definitely, if you have no other notary buddies, get a Virginia Ron as a notary buddy. And then that way you can kind of split the fee and both of you make money,
I have a question from Samsung. Your name isn't on there, honey. I'm so sorry. I'm going to call you by your phone name because I don't see
that's
anything on
okay.
there.
I'm Nicole from
apologize.
Minnesota, Nicole. And first of all, I think I didn't change my device name. I'm on a different device today. I didn't have time, but yeah. So Amy, first of all, and Marcy, thank you for this. This is great. Amy, I was a participant in September when you joined Brenda Colston Zoom and you gave us an overview of Minnesota. So walk. When 2023 hit, everything kind of went downhill. And I, as far as what we're able to earn with it. So I didn't really look into it too much. However, because things keep, updating and changing, I'm still following. Love what your input was on the dual notary snowbird Florida thing, because that's exactly where I am. And I just wanted to know, I was piddling around. I didn't find anything from what you're saying for Florida, but do you know if there's any other states that after December 29th will Minnesota be a part of that? Do you know?
Right now it's just Ohio because notary law is state specific. So if you normally to be commissioned as a notary in any jurisdiction, you have to meet a residency requirement or a work requirement, or your commissioned notary in a state that borders that state. Those are usually the three requirements, one of them. Not all states do the third one. Okay. Ohio, I think, is the first one to open up the opportunity that you can get it just because you're a notary in another state. And you have to have been for a year. You have to have all of your education requirements. You have to meet all of the Ohio requirements, and you have to get a background check. And then you can only be a notary for Ohio when you're in Ohio. But I will tell you, our Secretary of State's office isn't super happy about that law, but I'm sitting here going, whoop, whoop. But yeah, so come December 29th, as long as you've been a notary for 1 year in any other state, you can, and you're in good standing, you can apply to become a dual commission notary in Ohio. And that works great if you visit Ohio like I plan to, but it also works as a sales tactic. So many people don't realize that it really doesn't do you any good to have a dual commission unless you're physically in that state. Right. But if you went to any location, any title agency, etc., and on your notary resume said, I'm dual commissioned, well, you've done something that a lot of other notaries haven't done. So now you can,
it's a marketing point.
Up. Exactly. It's a marketing standpoint. They think you know more, you have more ability than any other notary. So you've got a higher standing in their mind if you spin it that way. Does that make sense?
It does. It's great. Now, let me ask this. Do you have to be a Florida notary for a certain amount of time before you're dual? Did you say 12 months in as a Florida notary in order to make it work as an Ohio notary? Okay.
Yeah, you have to be a notary in any state for one consecutive 12-month span, and then be currently active in that state. Then you can apply to be dual commissioned in Ohio.
Okay.
So you could apply for your dual commission as a Minnesota notary, and then you could relinquish Minnesota and get your Florida notary, but you don't have to stop your Ohio because you were commissioned when you got Ohio. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Good news.
And if interested, I teach the class for that one.
Oh, even better. Yeah, because I just kind of have family in Florida, and they've always said, come on down. I'm like, I'm a northerner, so I'm like, those hurricanes and that good stuff. But having spent a good over a month in the winter there and just really soaking it up, I'm like, you know what? And knowing there's a lot of business there, I'm like, not a bad idea. So this was a ray of sunshine for me.
I'll let you in on a little secret. Most of my career in my life, I spent living in New Jersey. Okay. And having been in Florida for over 7 years now, going on 8 shortly, much, much better. You learn to deal with hurricanes. You can deal with those. You can't deal with cold weather and snow and bad driving in snow and things
Yes.
like that.
You got it. You got it.
It's nice to look at when it first falls, but it's a pain in the you-know-what when you have to shovel it
Amen.
and drive in it.
And when it's April and we still have it coming down. Yeah, we had snow yesterday. Yep.
Yep.
In April.
Oh yeah, you can keep it. I was in Montana for a convention there, and they had snow in April. And I was like, seriously? I thought I was like leaving, you know? So, all right. So if you're interested in the Ohio class,
Amy's going to post that link, and I will make sure to add it on to our recording as well.
Yeah. And I actually teach a Ron masterclass for the state of Montana, and then I teach the traditional notary class for Ohio. They won't allow any additional vendors to teach the Ron class in Ohio. It's statute. So until they change that, I'm limited to just the one. But our class is all online. You can do it from anywhere in the world. And here soon, I'll be able to send you the fingerprint card so you can have your fingerprints done locally and mail it in for a background check. So you really never physically have to be in Ohio.
All right, that's good information. We can all become Ohio notaries.
Awesome.
Any other questions before we wrap up here?
No, I appreciate it. I think my focus is going to be more on doing the right kind of marketing and stuff to build those bases, to build the Ron base and so on and so forth. But I'll tell you one thing, I'm doing this because I can do this job with the integrity that's required for the job. I once, several years ago, was a Florida licensed 0214 life insurance agent, and I hated it. I hated it because a lot of it was the mid-tier marketing stuff where they were all like really, really rough salesmen that just thought that they could sell anything to anybody, even if they didn't need it. And that just didn't fly with me. It was not morally correct for me to try and sell something to someone that really didn't need it, but that's the only way you're going to make money in that business. You have to sell things to people that don't need it, especially when you're talking about life insurance. And especially when you're in Florida where people are seniors and really don't need life insurance because they've already done everything they needed to do. So that's why I appreciate being in this type of position, because people need it and they need the integrity and they need the confidentiality, and that I can do for them.
Wonderful.
That is true.
Mm-hmm.
Being a notary is super important.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all so much for coming, and thank you especially, Amy. I really appreciate, I know you're super busy and have a lot going on, and this was so gracious of you to agree to pop on for this hour and a half and chit chat with all of us. I think it was great information that you gave, a lot of food for thought. We'll go ahead and obviously post this recording. Make sure that you tell your friends to come back and watch this. I really want to make sure that we're getting good information out there, and I'm always a little concerned.
Do you have my email for giving the announcement for it?
Yep, it'll come right from the Zoom link. So you'll get
okay. Fair
Zoom
enough.
link, yeah, the day
Fair
after.
enough.
Jessica, did you have a question or something? I think you raised your hand and then I missed it. So I'm sorry. Did one more thing that you wanted to add?
Oh, she was
say?
clapping. She was clapping.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you all so much. I hope you all have a good rest of your week. If your holiday, Passover, Easter, whatever it might be, I hope that you're all enjoying that time. If you don't celebrate at all, that's okay too. Hope you have a good rest of your week. If you have any questions, Amy's information is there. Mine is as well. Otherwise, we'll see you in a month. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
folks.
Thank you
Have
so
a
much.
pleasant holiday season.
Marcy.
Thanks.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.